Hey, Sean. If you don't know me, I'm a video producer based here in St. Louis, Missouri, and I've been using 32-bit floating point audio for the past 2 years or so, ever since it became widely available to consumers. I do primarily documentary style corporate communications videos. I do B-roll in some obnoxious industrial places, and I do a lot of seated interviews, and I've been using 32-bit float for all of it over the past couple of years. So I wanted to tell you what it is and what makes it different than 16-bit and 24-bit, what it does, and most importantly, what it doesn't do and what you should not expect from it. So let's get into it. 32-bit floating point audio means that every sample of your audio, every instant that's captured in your audio file, has 32 zeros and ones that make up that value. 24 and 16-bit have 24 bits and 16 bits respectively. But the big difference is not just that with 24 bits, you've got 16 extra bits, so you can make even more numbers than a 16-bit file. But with a 32-bit float file, not only do you get an extra 8 bits, but it's how those 8 bits are formatted that makes a huge difference. Because it becomes an exponent. Instead of a linear number, it's a floating point integer. And so you have a number that's still 24 bits taken to an exponent, which is 7 bits, and you have an extra bit for a positive or negative. So you end up with this huge range of numbers. And to compare, a 16-bit file can do, I think, 65,000 different values, which translates to about 96 decibels of dynamic range. 24-bit linear can do, I think, like 16 million, which I think translates to around like 144 decibels of dynamic range. 32-bit floating point audio can do, it's like a 5 undecillion. It's 5 with like 38 zeros after it. That's how many different numbers can exist in a 32-bit floating point audio file. And with that, you end up with, I think, 1,500 decibels of dynamic range. It's an unbelievable amount of audio range. And when you consider that from silence to the loudest sound ever recorded is less than 300 decibels, you can fit pretty much anything inside a 32-bit floating point audio file. So what does that actually do for you? It lets you adjust the volume and the gain afterwards. So when you record a 32-bit floating point audio file, the first thing you do historically is set up your microphone and then adjust your gain. You ask somebody a question. I like asking, what did you have for breakfast? Or what's a good restaurant to eat around here? And while they're talking, you get their level, so it's between, -18, -12, peaking at -6. Like, that's the sweet spot where you want it to be. And then historically, as people start doing their interview, maybe they get really loud, and somebody's got to turn that down so that the audio doesn't clip. It doesn't get louder than the audio file can contain. And vice versa, if somebody starts getting very quiet, you've got to turn that gain knob up to bring those levels up into that spot that's useful in the file. Because if it gets too quiet, when you try to bring that up, you just bring all this noise with it and it's unusable. Or if it goes too hot, the file is just distorted. And even if you make it quieter, it's distorted. It's just quieter. And so it's an unusable file. 32-bit floating point audio lets you record where that volume can all be adjusted later. Because even if it's higher than your ear can hear in the output, in post-production, you can bring the gain down and bring those back into the normal levels that we would be able to hear. So no audio will ever clip. Nothing will ever be so quiet that it can't be brought back up in the signal if it registered in the microphone. It's very, very handy, not just for normalizing the difference in an interview from the beginning and the end if somebody gets more comfortable or more shy as something goes on and their volume changes, but also with B-roll and things like that. I film in a lot of industrial situations, and all of a sudden we may have machinery kick on or a truck start up or something like that, and that can just trash your audio files. But with 32-bit float, you can recover that and fix it, and everything will be normal and sound good in your final project because you can adjust it after the fact. What 32-bit floating point audio will not do is adjust for bad mic placement, ambient noise, or wireless signals. And this is the problem. I hear people say, like, well, it's kind of like a raw audio file. Like if you've got a raw file in a camera, you can adjust the white balance later and you can adjust different things in the signal. That's not what raw audio is in this case. All you can adjust is the volume. If the microphone is too far from someone's mouth, if it's pointing in the wrong direction and somebody ends up with less bass in their voice or with a lot of off-axis noise, if you're using the wrong kind of microphone, 32-bit float does nothing to help you. If the noise around the room or wherever you're recording is really loud, 32-bit float does nothing to differentiate your speaker's voice from that background noise. You'll be able to turn it up, but the ratio between that person talking and the background noise will be consistent throughout. It's not going to magically pull up the voice and not pull up all the other frequencies that were hitting the microphone. A microphone just records sound waves, which is pressure. And all the other things that are competing for someone's voice or for whatever you're trying to record, all the other things competing in that pressure are going to be baked into the signal and brought up or down with it. It isn't magic. It's not going to separate or isolate someone's voice from all the ambient noise or from electronic hum, compressors, off-axis noise, or like I said, using the wrong microphones or something like that that would capture the wrong thing or capture more than you're trying to capture. 32-bit float does nothing to fix any of that. And the third thing that I see people disappointed about most frequently is that 32-bit float doesn't work with wireless microphones. How it works is by taking the electrical signals from a microphone and recording them through a cable into your audio recorder. There's typically two audio digital converters, one for really, really quiet things, one for really, really loud things, and it switches intelligently between the two depending on where your signal is. But if you've got a wireless signal, when you're wearing that transmitter, before it's transmitted to the receiver, it's already converted to a 16-bit or a 24-bit linear file. So all of that data is gone before it makes it to the receiver, and then that receiver goes into your 32-bit float. And even though your file will still be a 32-bit floating point file, there's not any extra data in there. All of this range is gone because it's already been compressed once to make it through the wireless signal. It's akin to using a really, really fancy camera, taking a raw photo of like the cover of a newspaper. You're not going to be able to do extra things to whatever photos were there because they're already there. They're already compressed and whatever. You don't get extra range just because you added a layer of a higher data capture on top of it. So at the end of the day, it's fantastic if you know how to use it. If you know what it does and you don't expect more than that from it, it's phenomenal. As somebody who shoots a lot of things with small crews, when I'm shooting an interview, to not have to have somebody who's just feathering a gain knob to make sure we have usable audio is a big money saver for my clients. And if you're a professional and you're just there recording audio, it's still a wonderful thing to have because it lets you adjust things afterwards and you don't have to have your hand on the knob the whole time. And even if you've done that your whole life, let's say you wanted to shoot something where you've got two hands on a boom pole or you've got multiple things happening, just to not worry about that signal nonstop lets you do other things with your attention and lets you create better things. So no, it's not foolproof. No, it's not something that you can just set a microphone in the room, set it to 32-bit float and walk away. You still need to place your mics properly. You still need to select the proper mics, which, as a plug to my other videos, a shotgun microphone isn't always, and in fact, I would say isn't usually the best choice for most people when they're recording audio. But making sure you have the right mic, making sure you've controlled as much ambient noise as you can, electronic noise, off-axis noise, environmental noise, making sure you do all those things properly. The only thing you don't have to worry about is feathering the gain knob while you're recording. That's all it does for you, but that is a huge deal. If you've got any questions, if you are trying this, or if you're wondering if it works with different things, feel free to throw those questions in the comments. If I've been horribly wrong about anything, feel free to politely throw that in the comments as well. That's all I got. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far in the video. I sincerely appreciate it. Have a great day or night, whatever, wherever. See you later. Bye.